logging in right on time. Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it. We'll go ahead and get started in a minute or two. In the meantime, go ahead and use the chat to say hi, introduce yourself, ask any questions, let us know what school you're from, what county you're from. We're always happy to interact with our teachers and our educators in our state of Florida. Good morning, Susan. Good morning, Linda. Thank you for joining us. Hey, Jessica. Thanks for being here, everybody. We're really excited to bring you session 2. You're going to get a lot of great takeaways for your classroom and your virtual classroom in this session as well. That chat box is looking really great. So thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it. I'm actually going to go ahead and get started so that we can get as much content as we can in our allotted time. Please excuse the background noise. There's a little bit of construction going on, so that's why I'm speaking a little bit louder. But I'd like to welcome you all to session 2. Session 2 is Kickstart Your Content with Scientists in Every Florida School. So let me go ahead and introduce Stephanie really briefly before we start. Today we welcome Stephanie Killingsworth, the K-12 Education and Outreach Coordinator, as she discusses Scientists in Every Florida School, a program that connects classroom learning with scientists and research. Killingsworth is a national and state recognized former gifted middle school teacher from Palm Beach County. She's responsible for implementing the Scientists in Every Florida School project, primarily in Lee, Palm Beach, and Seminole counties. In this role, she provides professional development for teachers, as well as connects teachers and their classrooms to scientists through a variety of platforms, which focus on cultivating long-term collaboration. This exciting program provides virtual opportunities for classrooms to connect with scientists from a variety of disciplines, including Everglades research and projects. You will also hear from Adam Roberti, the director at Cortada Projects at Pinecrest Gardens, who will discuss a special project involving the importance of studying and planting mangroves. As you teach about the Everglades ecosystem in the classroom, you can further connect the content with real-world research and problem solving. So thank you, Stephanie and Adam, for hosting this session. We are looking forward to learning more. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Bianca, and thank you so much for having us here today to talk with the teachers. I am going to just forward my slide here real quick. Let's see, there we go. And I'm going to move my chat box out of the way so I can actually see what's happening here. Excellent. So as Bianca mentioned, we're going to talk to you a little bit about how to kickstart your content, and doing that with Scientists in Every Florida School. That content, of course, can be very much the Everglades curriculum-based content or otherwise. And as she mentioned, my name is Stephanie Killingsworth. I'm one of 2 K-12 education and outreach coordinators for the program. We are with the University of Florida's Thompson Earth Systems Institute, or TESI for short. And TESI has a mission to communicate science that's Earth systems based within the state of Florida to Floridians in order to hopefully inspire them to take action. Earth systems being air, land, water, and life, and how humans impact those, and also how they kind of coexist together. So the audiences that we target for air, earth, water, land, life, these are the 4 main audiences, target audiences. And I'm going to talk to you a lot about the K-12 education component because we've got teachers here on the call with us today. But we also target, not only through the Science in Every Florida School program, K-12, we also target lifelong learners through public programming. And we also target scientists and their science communicators with better able to be able to better communicate or hone their communication skills and explain their research to the general public, as well as policymakers. So why should these audiences care about Earth system science in Florida? And again, I think I'm probably speaking to the choir here when I explain that there are a number of reasons why they should care. Here's just a quick sampling of 3 such reasons. With climate change and Florida being kind of on the forefront of Earth system science, you've got things like sunny day flooding and blue-green algae, and of course invasive species in the Everglades. So I see everybody popping in that chat box there, Carla and Monica. Thanks so much. I'm excited to see some familiar names and some schools that I've worked with in the past, but also schools that have maybe yet to hear about CEFS. How many of you, just out of curiosity, are familiar with Thompson Earth Systems Institute, or CEFS, by the way? Looking to see if anybody, is anybody new to CEFS? Not me, excellent. Okay, good. Thanks, Leslie. Thanks, Pamela, John. Awesome, this is exciting. So as I said, I know you all being very much interested in sharing the Everglades curriculum and kind of talking about conservation and restoration efforts of the Everglades. I know that this speaks to you, and Earth Systems Science and what TESI does and how scientists in every Florida school can interact in your classroom, I think is going to be a really nice fit to share with you. So these are the reasons why CEFS and TESI should be important, in particular to K-12 audiences. So TESI has only been around since 2018. It was funded by John and Beverly Thompson out of Lee County, Florida. And within that, the Scientists in Every Florida School was actually not just launched recently in 2019-2020 school year, so this past school year. We're a small team of two, myself and my colleague Brian run the program, and we split the counties, 67 counties in the state, in half. Essentially, Brian handles the northern portion and I handle the southern portion of the state, central, south, down. Our mission for Scientists in Every Florida School is truly to build long-term collaborative partnerships between teachers and scientists in order to, again, effectively communicate that Earth system science and share that knowledge with classrooms so that we can basically kind of groom the next generation of environmental stewards. And as the name implies, we hope to connect every public school in the state of Florida with a scientist on an annual basis. So in order to do that, in this first year, we've targeted 7 pilot counties. And I hear from Bianca that there are some of you from Escambia County up in the Panhandle. This is one of those 7 counties, and we've geographically placed them across the state. Alachua County being the central house of University of Florida. We have Marion and Levy County, and we have Palm Beach County, Seminole County, there we go, Lee County, and Palm Beach County, where I live. So I'm actually housed in the southern portion of the state in order to kind of be feet on the ground in the south portion of Florida. But the main crux of what we do and what I want you to take away with CEFS as far as who we are and what we do is we offer free K-12 public programming for those public schools, physical and virtual classroom interactions with scientists. And as I said before, the mission is long-term partnerships. So these shouldn't be necessarily a one and done sort of thing. We want you to build rapport and relationship and a network of like-minded teachers, but also like-minded scientists in sharing that Earth systems research and collaborating to build lessons, activities, labs, projects that connect that research with K-12 Florida Sunshine State standards, really. So we do this in a number of ways. Again, physical and virtual classroom visits, but also live stream virtual field trips and events. We offer professional development for teachers as well as research experiences for teachers. And we curate loads of K-12 resources and scientific news from around the state for you to share with your classrooms. So I think the exciting news, the exciting news, I thought it did one more, hold on, let me back up. The exciting news is, if there's a silver lining with COVID, is that we are now virtually doing interactions across the state. So no matter where you are within the state of Florida, if you wanted to connect virtually with a scientist, you can do so. Not only partake in professional development or partake in live stream events, but truly have a one-on-one interaction with scientists in your classroom. And I think that's super exciting. So I wanted to share that with you all here and let you know, you could be the first to know that CEFS is available for your classrooms. So in our first year, this past school year, some of the things we were able to accomplish were over 180 visits in schools across the state. That was a total of 138 schools reached. We did 36 live stream events on varying topics, many of which connect Everglades education curriculum. We have a very much growing daily database of scientists and teachers joining forces. and we have reached over 16,000 students. And the way we can grow to capacity to hit every public school in the state of Florida is through partnerships. And we've already established a number of unique partnerships around the state. I've listed several of them here on this slide for you to see, but I've brought someone with me from the Cortada Projects, Adam Roberti, to talk specifically about our relationship and partnership and some of the things that we've been able to affect in the classrooms and the upcoming school year. So I think without further ado, I'm going to let Adam take over the slide deck here. He's going to talk a little bit about the Cortada Projects and specifically plant. Adam?
Yeah, thanks so much, Stephanie. Can you hear me? Perfect. Thank you for that introduction. Bianca, thanks as well for that. Real quick, for any of the teachers who do not know what Cortada Projects is, Cortada Projects is the social practice of artist Xavier Cortada. And a lot of you from Miami, from Broward, may have an idea as to who he is. He's the chair of the Cultural Affairs Council for Miami-Dade County. And I would like to show a picture of him if I can. There we go. I don't think I have access yet. Maybe I do. To switching. Thank you. Xavier is a professor of practice at the University of Miami, and I work with him full-time to develop and implement his participatory eco-art projects across South Florida, but now thanks to Stephanie and Cephs across all of Florida. And so we have a number of these eco-art projects that are very much about experiential learning, that are very much about engaging our community. And we have been doing that over this past year, particularly in Miami, and particularly on this one project called Plant. And again, I'm not seeing there we go. If you're in South Florida, you may have seen this project because it was all over libraries, and we partnered with a bunch of schools in doing this project. And this project is chiefly about planning and planting for the future of our community of South Florida. And this project can extend north a bit, but as you can see, the T in this plant is a mangrove propagule. And so mangroves don't necessarily live up along the panhandle. It's a little bit too cold there. But I'm going to explain to you what this project is and a little bit about, and hi Hazel, it's good to see you in the chat there. Again, and Carla as well. We got to work with Carla in the professional development with Stephanie a couple weeks ago. So anyway, let me get into Plant a little bit and give you guys some background, a little bit of context as to what this is and what is available for your students in the year coming forward. So what you see here is a couple of our interns. We work with undergraduate and graduate students at the University of Miami to collect mangrove propagules. And some of you may be thinking, aren't they a protected species? Isn't this illegal, what I'm seeing on the screen right now? But because of our connection with Miami-Dade County Parks and Recreation, we were able to get a permit to collect thousands of these mangroves to implement this plant project. And I'm gonna get into more of what the plant project is in a little bit, but I do wanna give you guys an idea as to what it looks like from an eco art installation perspective. And this is here in Pinecrest Gardens. It's about 10 minutes from the University of Miami in Coral Gables, if any of you guys have yet to go or check it out. This project actually originated, and I'll just, no pun intended, has its roots back in 2004. And I want you guys to understand the growth of this project, because Cortada Projects it's not a nonprofit, it's actually part of an artist's studio. So Xavier, as an artist, has done many things, working with scientists at the North Pole and at the South Pole in Antarctica and in CERN. And what he does as a local Miami artist is try to make the invisible visible. So back in 2004, he created the Miami Mangrove Forest, and he engaged about 800 volunteers in painting underneath I-95, the overpass, with mangrove propagules. And it's a metaphoric reforestation of Miami-Dade County, bringing mangroves back to the urban environment where they once were. And this project spawned the Reclamation Project, which may be familiar to some of you. This is back over a decade ago. If you were walking down Lincoln Road, you in Miami Beach, you would have seen these strange, cigar-looking plants in water-filled cups. And especially if you're a tourist, you would not have any idea what you're seeing. And so it catches your attention, it kind of hooks you, and you stop, and then you can see that there's a little palm card there where you read about it. And this Reclamation Project was really about having people understand what was here, and what our human impact has been. Miami Beach especially, it was a mangrove forest until we ripped them out and laid concrete down. And so this was Xavier putting nature back into the built environment. And just from the art perspective, these rows and columns are mirroring streets and avenues, right? So it's a cityscape that we're trying to bring nature back into. However, it clearly can only survive on this life support system that we have for it. And so this reclamation project would take those mangroves and take them for coastal reforestation. So acres and acres of mangroves have been planted along Virginia Key, Key Biscayne. And this was a project that has been continued through the Frost Science Museum. Back when it was the Miami Science Museum, they took this project over. And now if you were curious more about mangrove restoration along coastal areas, then you would look up Museum Volunteers for the Environment, or MOVE, and that's through the Frost Science Museum. But again, all of this originated with the reclamation project. And the reason that I'm talking to you about plant today and not the reclamation project, as important as this is that we've kind of taken a step into the climate crisis, okay? And that's where I think this project gets exciting for the teachers that are here. And that is that we're, you know, especially with our partnership with SEPS, we're able to bring to you a very relevant topic in climate change, a topic that a lot of teachers struggle to talk about or really address in a meaningful way. And we use an art project to get the kids engaged. And so I'm gonna just briefly go through a couple of these slides, which are just what we would talk about with the children. And again, I'm gonna tell you what the Plants Project has the kids do, but understand that we want kids to understand, we want our students to understand how our lives are the way they are, the way that we're able to live through fossil fuels, what the greenhouse effect is. And I'm just going through these quickly because I want you to understand what some of the talking points are when implementing this project and what the curriculum can look like, because it is very, very climate focused. But South Florida specifically, when you can address stronger hurricanes, and when you have our coral reef system, which is getting bleached. And again, it's a project about mangroves, and it can obviously easily tie in to Everglades restoration, for example, but we're trying to have our students understand, I guess, the importance of what we have here, and I guess really have a better appreciation for our local environment. And so what we want our students to fully grasp here is what climate change means for sea level rise, what that means for Miami, but not just Miami, because in our experience talking with families, you know, with teachers even, a lot of people are unaware of what sea level rise is going to mean, not just for Miami Beach here, but honestly for all of South Florida. And this is in this picture where you can see what 5 feet of sea level rise will do. You can see our second coastline. You can see the Everglades, and that's one of the things that we try to get across here is when you ask what's the coastline over in Miami, you know, you have the Atlantic Ocean, but then you have a second coastline, which is the Everglades, the river of grass, at the same time that you have the third coastline, which is the aquifer. And right beneath our feet, this is a picture that I wanted to show you guys that I think drives the message home that we here in South Florida cannot adapt as easily as other places, right? You can't just build a seawall and expect to be okay. We have really big issues that we have to deal with that we need to be planning for. And that's where plant comes into play, because it's all about planning and planting for the future. And we do that by having you take a salt-tolerant mangrove propagule and plant it in your front yard next to a flag that has your elevation on it. So this is a picture of the farmer's market in Pinecrest Gardens that we used to be doing every single Sunday. And at this table, for example, you would come up, we would give you the application where you type your address in. It's an FIU app. And once you type your address in, it tells you how high your house is above sea level. And once you know that number, say it's 3.2 feet above sea level, then you would take a Sharpie and you draw that on a flag, and you take that flag along with that mangrove propagule, that mangrove seedling, and you go and you plant it in your front yard. And of course, the first question is, well, can a mangrove even live there? Because, you know, you normally associate them with the ocean, with salt water, and they're salt tolerant, but they're not salt loving. They can live in fresh water. They can live with a sprinkler system, and they don't need to be inundated in water. So just to get that out there to clear up any confusion that you may have, these mangroves can live. We actually planted a Pinecrest mangrove forest here in Pinecrest Gardens, where, you know, hundreds of them are growing right now. And what this is a symbol of what's to come. And this mangrove, again, when it's in your front yard next to a flag with your particular elevation number on it, you're going to have a friend or a family member or a neighbor that's going to be coming over, and maybe not right now during COVID, but they'll see it and they will ask, what is that doing there, right? Like, what is that flag? What does that number mean? What is going on here? And now you have a catalyst for conversation. And what I'm sure everybody on this call would agree with me about is that, you know, the science is very clear about what's going on in our environment, about the climate. However, communicating it can be difficult, especially with how political it has become, right? So if your neighbor sees that you are at 4.2 feet above sea level, that means that they're also 4.2 feet above sea level, and sea level rise is something that you need to address. If you are on septic, right? If you care about having fresh drinking water in the decades to come, and the value of your property, assuming that it doesn't collapse because when you're not able to get a 30-year loan, right? So there's just lots of conversations that need to be had. And so this farmers market is a place that we were doing it in addition to schools and libraries across Miami-Dade County. So for example, I'll just show you a couple, because a couple of the main ones were the University of Miami, where we had a number of installations across campus. Miami Beach Senior High had 2,500 mangroves across their entire school. And so the idea was, come Earth Day, and this is what we did with a bunch of the schools that we partnered with, was that these mangroves would go up in these installations, and then come Earth Day, the mangroves would come down as part of the Earth Day celebration. The students would be able to take home the mangrove, plant it, have one of those palm cards to give to their parents, and really get these conversations going about why we are planning and planting for the future, because these salt tolerant mangroves are the future tree canopy of Miami-Dade County. When our freshwater species have their roots inundated in salt water, they're going to fade away. And again, this is one of those consequences that isn't necessarily talked about, because we're caring about, say, climate migration, for example. And we're not talking about just like what our local landscape is going to look like. It's going to be changing in the decades to come, and we are preparing for that. And obviously I could go into a whole PowerPoint about how amazing mangroves are and how good they are at sequestering carbon dioxide, et cetera, et cetera. But this project is something that we want kids to be able to get involved with, understand, and really take ownership of. And that's why we went into every single library, every single public library branch in Miami-Dade last year, and actually gave presentations at every single one of them, where we talked to kids about sea level rise. We had families look up their elevations, understand that even though they're in West Kendall, they are vulnerable. And again, these are places that really have no idea that they are as susceptible to this issue as they need to be. And, you know, we're trying to figure out, how do we be creative? How do we get these conversations to go where they haven't reached yet? And that's where, you know, kids will appreciate the fact that there is social media involved, right? So we have you plant your mangrove with your flag, take a picture of it, post it on Instagram, post it on Facebook, however, you know, whichever social media you like to use. And this way we can have it actually grow. We can have other people see, wow, look, you know, this is something that I'm a part of. It's bigger than myself. And that's kind of the join the movement type of mentality, if you will. And then what's been really cool is we were doing this as Cortado Projects, me managing the team of interns and undergraduate and graduate students. And what we're really excited about now working with CEFs is the ability to really grow this project in a way that we didn't necessarily have the capacity to do before. And one example of that was the PD that we did with CEFs just a couple of weeks ago. And I see Carla has been in the chat here, so we were able to work with her along with a few other teachers about developing a curriculum for plant so that it hits all of the standards that it needs to when you're discussing it and when you're doing the project. And it's clearly a STEAM project that a lot of the teachers have been really excited to bring, especially because of the response that it gets from the kids. And that's one of the things that I guess I want to really emphasize. I'm going to wrap this up shortly, but this really resonates with students because it provides hope. And that's one of the things that I think you will take away from this, is that when you're talking about climate change, and I got my master's from predominantly in climate communication. It's a program called Environment, Culture, and Media. And this program discusses the difficulties and the strategies of communicating climate change. And one of the main things is that it can really seem overwhelming, and it can seem like there's nothing that we can do about it, and why even try, and it's so scary. But we need to be able to give tangible action steps, right? What can we do to actually make a difference? Like, okay, I'm recycling, maybe I'm riding my bike, but what more is there? And when you can pique the interest with an art project, then it makes it a lot easier. And it's really that experiential learning that allows for you to tell the story better, if that makes sense. Like when you're talking to your friend and you're talking to your family, you're not just telling them facts about the concentration of carbon dioxide or methane in the atmosphere. You're telling them a story about how you got involved with this and why you're doing it. And it really is much more engaging and much more influential when it comes to how people are viewing something. So the fact that we're able to work with CEFs to make this project shine has been a pleasure, honestly. So I think I want to just show you real quickly one of the slides that our group of teachers developed during our professional development. So you can see a couple of the standards on the screen there in terms of instructional focus. And we were lucky to have 2 elementary school teachers and 2 high school teachers. So we were able to develop some curriculum for both elementary and high school. I apologize for not seeing the chat. I know that there have been some questions. I'm happy to answer, we'll talk about, I think we're going to leave some time to answer some questions. But I just wanted to show you guys this slide really quickly, and then leave you with this in case anybody is more interested in plant. You can obviously visit this website to learn more about it. But if you're intrigued and want to figure out how we can bring this project to you, then I think, let's have a discussion with Stephanie and CEFs and myself, because of this partnership. I think we're really able to bring these mangroves across South Florida, across Central Florida, potentially, depending how high they go. So I think with that, I want to just hand it back over to Stephanie. Thank you guys for listening, and hope to be working with you and having your students plan and plant for the future.
Thanks again, Adam. Yes, there's actually quite a few questions in the chat box. I promise we'll get to those in just a few moments. I'm going to tell you a little bit more here, because there's a lot of what we do, but not how to get involved yet. And I know many of those questions will be addressed with some of the information to come. So let me see here. I'm looking for the little mouse so I can click through. There we go. Okay, so you've heard from Adam and how Plant is one such project that has been happening with some of the schools around the state of Florida. I wanted to show you through images a few more examples of how CEFs might look in a classroom, so that you can familiarize yourself with some of the ways in which you might interact with our scientists. In the top left corner is actually the very first summer PD that we held, and it was on the UF campus. It's a week-long immersive experience, research experience for teachers, and you pick the lab that you want to participate in, learn more about the research they do, and write lessons to be utilized and implemented in the classroom and co-taught with your scientist. So that very PD is what Adam was referencing for this summer. Because of COVID, we did it 100% virtual a couple weeks ago, and we had 10 labs from around the state of Florida, which is a good point for me to segue and just let you know that these are not only University of Florida scientists, but they're scientists from across the state. All universities, I'm seeing comments about, UM, I'm seeing comments about USF and UCF. All universities are participating in this program, and we have a huge database of scientists who are taking part. And they are very much interested in sharing what they do with K-12 educators, as well as the students that you teach. The middle picture is a field experience for teachers. That's Montbrook, which is a very famous dig site, paleontological site for fossils in the state of Florida, I think near Gilchrist County, if there's any Gilchrist folks out there. Great experience. We offer several PDs throughout the year. The other pictures that you see here, I thought would be kind of fun to throw up. They've got a connection to Everglades content. Bottom left is the Croc Docks. This is our IFAS extension in Broward County. They pretty much work on a lot of the invasives that are within the Everglades. Up in the top right, you've got an entomologist with UF who is talking about wetlands ecology and the various bugs and frogs that you might find within those ecosystems. Bottom right is one of our partners, the Manatee Lagoon, which is an FPL Eco Discovery Center, did a live stream virtual field trip to Manatee Lagoon with kids from around the state. Just a couple more to share with you here. Let me see if I can click. Okay, it's going, there it goes. Top left is a program called Exploring Plants, where we had 18 schools from across the state participate with our plant pathology program to learn a little bit about interactions with different light wavelengths and plant growth and taste. They were working with Mint. We have the Whitney Lab, which is one of many turtle hospitals across the state, virtual field trips and lessons around that curriculum. Bees down on the bottom right, the honeybee lab at UF. And then there's a couple pictures of students in their homes working with scientists, talking with scientists virtually through our live stream Q&As. So one of the questions that I saw come through the chat box was actually in reference to, are these only public schools that can participate in this, public school teachers that can participate? The answer to that is a little complex. As far as the virtual and physical visits, at this time, if COVID were not around, we are only offering physical visits within the 7 pilot counties. We expand counties pretty frequently. So there's counties being added year to year, and we're hoping and anticipating to have physical classroom visits to schools across the state within the next 5 to 10 years. And at the way things are looking, I think that's going to be sooner rather than later. We're starting to add more infrastructure and capacity. As far as the virtual, because of COVID, that's now open to everybody. If you wanted to do an individual classroom visit virtually, you must be in a public school. But if you want to participate as a private school teacher, you still have the capacity to do so with our virtual live stream events and our field trip experiences. So we take kids virtually to different places like Mounts Botanical Garden or the Whitney Lab, and students from across the state in private or public school can participate in those events. Teachers from across the state can participate in PD, no matter if you're public or private school. So I hope that answers that question. And I know there's a few more. I want to tell you, how do you request a scientist? A little bit about that process. So a quick tour of the CEF's website. I've bit.ly'd it here, and as it's my understanding from Bianca, you all will have access to the slide presentation. So you will get to know this landing page and find this bit.ly in order to access CEF's. But this is our homepage. On this homepage, there's a great video that's about a minute long that I would recommend sharing with admin or other teacher colleagues, just so that they can understand the program if they weren't here today. And in this on the same page, landing page, you're going to find information in a blog that, to me, is extremely helpful as a teacher, because it gives you insight into the different visits that have happened around the state in this first year, and kind of a picture of what that interaction might look like, both physical or virtual, and what standards those scientists were connecting in classrooms. Most importantly, on that left menu tab, you'll find a How to Get Involved tab. And when you click on that, you'll find a video that explains the process and what you should expect, but also a Request a Scientist form. And you're looking at that form here on this slide. It's going to ask a series of questions, mainly demographics. It'll ask you what standards or topic you're hoping to connect and what type of scientist you're hoping to connect with in your classroom. This helps us plan and match most effectively your visit. Additionally, I'd like to mention, and this again goes for my private school folks out there, we have a wonderful YouTube channel set up with a number of our recordings. We record all our live stream events, and you'll find those here, and they are great to share with your classroom, particularly the CEF's science segments. These are quick, like 5-minute shorts, video shorts with a scientist who talks specifically about a certain standard and how it relates to their science. You'll also find some of my personal favorites, the CEF's virtual field trips, some of which are at various entities like, again, Manatee Lagoon or Mounts Botanical Gardens, and one at the Florida Museum of Natural History, which is your state museum up in Gainesville. We have one such event actually next Thursday at 3 p.m., for example. If you wanted to come check one out, there is a virtual field trip through one of the archaeological displays, and we're going to talk about what it takes to put this display together, et cetera. So it's kind of an interesting one to see, get a snapshot of what we do. The other thing I would suggest is that you join us by registering for the CEF Spotlight newsletter. It comes out once a month. The next edition will be coming out on August 4th. In this, you kind of get to be the first in the know. We'll tell you a lot about different grant opportunities, different PD opportunities. You'll see some highlights from around the state. But again, a great place to connect and network. And because I've got a lot of folks who are intrinsically interested in Everglades restoration and Everglades content curriculum, I would highly recommend that you also subscribe to the TESI newsletter. The Thompson Earth Systems Institute puts out something called the Earth to Florida. And this is chock full of information around the state regarding Earth systems science, and a lot specifically involving Everglades. So this is a great resource for teachers with Everglades curriculum. And then at this point, I'd like to open it up to questions, because I know there's quite a few of them coming through the chat box. And Brian and I we're here to answer anything you'd like us to, and hopefully clear up any questions you might have.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Adam. So I know that one of the biggest questions we had for Steph's was whether you work with schools outside of public schools. So thank you for addressing that, Stephanie. And teachers were also wondering how to access and how to request a scientist. So I know that you reviewed that. Someone here is asking, what is your actual website? Kimberly Gooch went in and put the link into the chat, but we will send it again. There's both Stephanie and Kim have sent it again. That's the main website. There we go. So in the meantime, while some questions come in for Steph's, I wanted to point out that, Adam, a lot of teachers are asking whether your program expands outside of the Miami-Dade area. If you could clarify that.
Definitely. So it can certainly extend beyond Miami-Dade County. We've only been doing Miami-Dade for the past year. However, it can go north, just not too north, because mangroves won't survive if the climate is too chilly. So when we were having discussions with Stephanie, it's Broward, West Palm, really up to about Orlando is probably where we would max it out in terms of, how far it'd be willing to go.
That makes sense. Thank you for answering that. And I know there's a lot of people who are curious to learn more about planting native species and how important that is for our ecosystem. So we definitely encourage you to participate in local projects that do plant native species. That's absolutely part of Everglades restoration. So you can participate in that inside and out of the classroom as well. Please feel free to contact Adam to get some more information about how you can get those mangrove seeds. We had some questions from teachers asking if they can pick them up at local libraries or if you ship them to schools. So if you want to just answer that briefly, and then we'll share your contact information as well.
For sure. So in terms of the mangrove project, we've collected thousands of mangroves that we have been using to implement the project. It really is going to depend on what the school year looks like in terms of if it's going to be in person, if it's going to be virtual, because that's still up in the air. There's some discussions to be had. In terms of, connecting with us, I think going through Stephanie is probably going to be the easiest route. That way we can make sure that the partnership is involved. But yeah, I think the easiest thing for me to say right now is, connect with us and we'll figure out how we want to move forward with it. My email is adam@cortadaprojects.org. I'll put that in the chat. So you can reach out. You can reach out to me directly if you'd like.
Thanks so much for that. So Stephanie, another question for you. How can someone specifically request a specific scientist? Is that an option?
Absolutely. So if you have a particular scientist by name that you're interested in working with, you can simply write that in the comments. So it's going to ask you, again, a lot of demographics regarding what school you're at, what county you're in, how many students you project interacting with the scientists, what topic or standards you're hoping to cover. And there's a spot for the type of scientist or specifics about who you're looking for in that case. So you can definitely let us know that information. And if myself or Brian, my colleague, have questions that we need to ask of you, we'll do that within a 24-hour period. We usually send an email back to you just acknowledging the request, and we'll get additional information to tease out what you're looking for and make a proper match for you. I would say the best thing to do, especially in the COVID times and us expanding out virtually statewide, would be to try to think and plan at least a week, possibly 2 weeks ahead of time on what you're projecting and what your needs will be, so that we can get that match for you in a timely fashion. I would say that most often, though, we're turning around requests within several days, and we anticipate to be able to still do that, but we always want to under-promise, over-deliver. So if you can give us a week or two's notice, that would be preferred.
That's impressive. And so it's not too late to request a scientist, right? That's currently open.
It is. We're here all year round, and we've got teachers requesting scientists now for the fall. So we definitely want to know about those requests, put them in our database, make the proper match, and have everything secured. luckily virtual is in a lot of ways, it makes things easier because, you know, it's Zoom or Google Meets, and it's pretty easy to set those things up. When it's physical, we're also doing things like scheduling people's travel, getting hotels and car rentals to send people across the state. So it's a lot of logistics involved. And should things open back up at some point in the school year and we're offering those physical visits, that's something that we need to be able to make those accommodations as well. But yes.
Great, that's wonderful. And to answer a question in the chat, there are scientists that are outside of just Everglades focused research areas. There are other disciplinaries that you can partner with scientists from those areas as well. So teachers can check that out on the website that has been provided, the link in the chat. So we only have about 1 minute left, of maybe even less. So I really wanted to thank you both for participating in this session and sharing your wonderful resources with everyone. The chat was really excited getting to learn about both of your programs. I am confident that both of you will be receiving emails after we hang up from this session. Teachers are really excited. And as we mentioned earlier, the demand for Everglades education is really out there. So thank you to both of you for providing resources that help contribute to that. And Adam, you said something in particular that you provide a message of hope, which I think is really important as well in these times that we are currently living in, you know, and that's in and out of school and at homes and everywhere else. So thank you. And we'll be around for a few more minutes if anyone else has a couple other questions, but otherwise, thank you both again for providing such great resources.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Bianca.
Thanks. So make sure that you are registered to attend the next session. That next session is all about geospatial technologies. It's session 3. There you'll learn how GIS is important to environmental education and how you can use citizen science in your classroom. So we'll go ahead and drop that registration link in the chat, and we'll be around a few more minutes for any last minute questions that we have for Stephanie and Adam here.
There was one question. I don't know if she's still in here, but one of the questions was about where to plant the mangroves. And just to touch on that real quickly, you know, we can't tell you we're not allowed to plant the mangrove on just public land, but you can, on your property's space, put it there, and that's not a problem. It is illegal, however, to then take it out because it is a protected species. So once it's planted and it's, you know, it's rooted and it's growing leaves, you're not allowed to touch it. It has to stay there. You're not allowed to trim it. That's just mangrove law. But I wanted to make sure that that was understood. And then another question was about if you live in an apartment, what can you do? And they do live in pots, as long as you make sure that it's you know, as long as it has water, just like it would with a sprinkler outside, then that's totally fine. And a lot of times I actually tell people to gift the mangrove to somebody who has a yard and would be willing to plant it. So it's a nice little present. But anyway, just to answer those two quickly.
It seems like we have a few more questions. You know, how can we find an area to restore, and how do we know what land is allowed to plant? Those are some questions that often you have to check with your local city and your local county and whatnot. So I'm not sure how much information Adam can provide on that, but I know that you've had experience working, you know, with different partners in the community and making your projects go through.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing, what if you had a partnership and are approved to plant on public land? I mean, if you have that, you know, go for it. We want to encourage as much mangrove planting as possible. But in terms of the scope of our project, it's very much just encouraging, you know, homeowners and families to plant where they can locally.
Great. All right, everyone. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up so we have time to introduce the next session. Thank you all again. We really appreciate it. This has been really wonderful. Thanks for connecting and collaborating with us on these efforts. We really appreciate it.
Thank you again. Thank you, everyone, and have a great year. I know it's going to be an interesting one, but we're here to support you. So please keep us in mind.
Yep. Thanks so much, everybody.
And you'll find all these resources on our website. So make sure to check that follow-up email you'll get from us, as well as checking our website, evergladesliteracy.org. You will receive that in an email.
Take care.